Close your eyes and take a deep, slow breath. Let the noise of the modern world fade away into the distance. Tonight, we are not here, in this room, or even in this century. Tonight, we travel back through the mists of time, back to a land of marble temples, olive groves, and wine-dark seas. Imagine sitting by a crackling fire under a vast star-filled sky in ancient Greece. The air smells of pine and sea salt. An elder storyteller begins to speak, and his voice carries the weight of eternity. He tells of a time when the earth was young, when gods walked among men, and when magic was as real as the air we breathe. From the swirling chaos of creation to the epic battles of Troy, this is the story of how the universe began and how it was ruled by the Olympians. Relax, let go, and let us drift into the entire story of Greek mythology. Before the ticking of the clock, before the first breath of wind rustled through a single leaf, and before the sun traced its golden arc across the sky, there was only the silence. Allow your mind to drift back, far beyond the reach of recorded history, beyond the age of empires, and beyond the age of humanity. Let us travel back to the very beginning of existence. Imagine, if you will, a state of perfect, suspended stillness. There is no up, no down, no yesterday, and no tomorrow. There is only the vast, infinite expanse of the void. In the language of the ancient Greeks, this state was known as chaos. But this chaos was not a place of confusion or disorder as we might think of the word today. In the ancient telling, chaos was a yawning abyss, a deep, dark gap between nothingness and existence. It was a space of infinite potential, a cosmic cradle waiting to be filled. Imagine floating in this endless velvet darkness. It is comforting, cool, and weightless. It is the feeling of heavy eyelids just before sleep takes over. A space where gravity holds no sway, and the burdens of the world have yet to be created. In this dark mist, the seeds of everything that ever was and ever will be were floating, drifting like dust motes in a sunbeam, though there was no sun to light them yet. It was a slumbering universe, breathing slowly in the quiet dark. And then, from this formless drift, something miraculous began to happen. It was not with a bang, nor with a shout, but with a slow, deliberate shifting of weight, a grounding presence emerging from the mist. From chaos, Gaia arose. She was the earth. She was the mother of all. Imagine the sensation of solid ground forming beneath your feet for the first time. Gaia was the broad-bosomed foundation of the universe, the unshakable floor upon which all history would eventually stand. She was the deep, rich soil. She was the strength of the granite mountains. She was the cool, quiet valleys. As Gaia formed, the universe gained its center. She was heavy, comforting, and warm. Picture the very first landscape coming into existence. There were no trees yet, no animals, just the raw, majestic beauty of the earth itself. Great peaks rose silently into the void, their summits touching the darkness. Vast plains stretched out into eternity, waiting for the first rains. It was a world of texture and silence, the roughness of stone, the smoothness of clay, the stillness of deep canyons. Gaia was not alone for long, though she was the most significant. Alongside her, other primordial forces drifted into being, soft and intangible. There was Tartarus, the deep, misty pit beneath the earth, a place of rest and shadow, as far beneath Gaia as the heavens would eventually be above her. And then there was Eros. Eros was love, but not in the human sense of romance. Eros was the force of attraction, the gravity that pulls things together, the cosmic magnetism that brings order to dust. Eros was the gentle energy that would eventually allow life to bloom. But the world was still dark. The mountains of Gaia stood in shadow. The valleys were cloaked in the obsidian black of the void. The earth needed a partner. It needed a covering. It needed the sky. And so Gaia, in her infinite capacity for creation, brought forth her equal, her protector, and her blanket. She gave birth to Uranus, the starry sky. Imagine looking up from the surface of that ancient silent earth. Slowly, the void above began to change. The emptiness was replaced by a dome of profound indigo blue. It was a ceiling of crystal and sapphire, stretching from one horizon to the other, wrapping the earth in a permanent embrace. Uranus was the heavens personified, and to decorate his vast form, the first stars flickered into existence. One by one, like diamonds being placed on black velvet, the constellations took their places. These were not the dim lights of a city-polluted sky. These were the burning, brilliant fires of the primordial cosmos. They shimmered with a pure, cold light, casting a silver glow over the silent mountains of Gaia below. The relationship between Gaia and Uranus was one of total, uninterrupted unity. In those early eons, the sky did not stay distant from the earth. Uranus descended, pressing close to Gaia, wrapping her in his starry mantle. It was a time of union, a time when the earth and the sky were locked in a perpetual embrace. There was no space between them, no air to breathe, just the intimate connection of matter and atmosphere. It was a time of gestation. The rain fell from Uranus not as storms, but a life-giving blessing soaking into the dry soil of Gaia. This union filled the hollows of the earth, creating the first rushing rivers and the wide, wine-dark seas. Can you hear the sound of that first water? The gentle lapping of the primordial ocean against a rocky shore. There were no seagulls to cry out, no ships to break the waves. Just the rhythmic, hypnotic sound of water moving against stone. Shh, shh, shh. Cyclical and eternal. This period was the era of the protogenoi, the firstborn. It was a time of elemental purity. There were no wars yet. There was no anger, no jealousy, and no noise. There was only the earth, the sky, the misty depths, and the darkness of night, Nyx, and the glow of day, Hemera, who began their eternal dance of chasing one another across the dome of Uranus. Night would sweep her dark veil across the world, bringing rest, and day would follow with her golden light, illuminating the majestic peaks of the newborn mountains. It was a rhythm as slow and steady as a heartbeat. Day, night, day, night. The universe was a sanctuary. It was a garden of potential, waiting for the next chapter. But for now, in this ancient era, there was no rush. The mountains grew inch by inch. The seas deepened drop by drop. The stars spun slowly on their axes, watching over the sleeping world. As you visualize this, Feel the stability of Gaia beneath you. Feel the support of the bed or chair you are resting on, grounding you just as Gaia grounds the universe. Feel the protective cover of the roof above you, sheltering you like Uranus shelters the Earth. You are safe here, sandwiched between the Earth and the sky, held in the gentle balance of the cosmos. There were no clocks to measure the passing of these eons. Millions of years might have passed like a single afternoon nap. This was the golden dawn of existence, peaceful, formless, and quiet. But deep within the rich soil of Gaia, life was stirring. The union of earth and sky was too powerful to remain barren. Gaia was pregnant with the future. She held within her the architects of the next age, beings of immense power and majesty who would shape the destiny of the world. But that is a story for later. For now, let us remain in the stillness. Let us remain in the time before trouble, in the time of the embrace. The stars are shining above, the earth is warm below, and the universe is breathing a slow, contented sigh. The chaos has settled, the order has begun, and in the soft silver light of the first stars, the cosmos sleeps, waiting, dreaming. Drift along with the silent rotation of the heavens. Let the image of the star-filled sky be the last thing you see as your mind begins to quiet down. The foundation is laid. The stage is set. But for tonight, there is only peace in the valley of the beginning. Rest now in the shadow of the first mountains. Sleep now under the watch of the first stars. The story will continue, but you can drift away into the velvet night. The universe had been born. The earth and sky were locked in their embrace. But for the story of the world to truly begin, there had to be space. There had to be room for the wind to blow, for the trees to grow, and for time itself to start ticking. As we drift further into this dream of the ancient past, visualize the great separation. It was not a moment of violence in this telling, but a moment of necessary expansion. The sky, Uranus, was lifted high above, creating the atmosphere, the blue dome of the heavens. And stepping into this newfound space, claiming the dominion of the cosmos, were the children of the earth and sky. These were the Titans. Imagine beings not of flesh and blood, but of elemental power. They were colossal, radiant figures, taller than the mountains, their skin glowing like burnished bronze. They were the architects of the physical world, the pillars upon which reality rested. Leading them was Cronus. In the mythology of the ancients, Cronus is often remembered for his later madness, but let us look back further, to the time when he was the king of the Golden Age. He was the Titan of time, the harvester, the one who oversaw the rhythms of the seasons. With the sky pulled back and the Titans ruling from the high peaks, the world entered an era known as the Golden Age of Man. Close your eyes and let your imagination paint a landscape of absolute perfection. This was a time before suffering, before labor, and before the biting cold of winter. The ancient poets tell us that in the Golden Age, spring was the only season. Imagine walking through a forest in this era. The air is perpetually warm, carrying the scent of orange blossoms and wild jasmine. There is no need for shelter, for the breeze is never harsh. The sun hangs in the sky, a benevolent golden eye, warming the earth but never burning it. In this world, the earth gave its bounty freely. There were no plows, no oxen toiling in the fields, no farmers wiping sweat from their brows. If you were hungry, you simply reached out your hand. The oak trees dripped with sweet amber honey. The vines were heavy with plump purple grapes that offered their juice without being pressed. Wheat fields grew tall and golden on their own, waving in the gentle wind like a soft yellow sea. Rivers didn't just carry water. Legends say that in the Golden Age, streams flowed with milk and sweet nectar, winding through the lush green valleys. It was a garden planet, a paradise of abundance, where every need was met before it was even felt. The inhabitants of this world lived in total harmony. There were no locks on the doors, for there was no theft. There were no armies, for there was no war. Animals that are now predators walked side by side with the gentle lamb. Wolves and sheep slept together in the soft grass. It was a world holding its breath in a state of pure, uninterrupted peace. Ruling over this paradise were Cronus and his sister queen, Rhea. Rhea was the titaness of flow and ease, the mother of gods. If Gaia was the solid earth, Rhea was the life that flowed across it. She was the comfort, the flow of time, the gentle progression of generations. Together, Cronus and Rhea sat upon thrones of gold, watching over a world that knew no pain. The other titans filled the world with their majesty. There was Hyperion, the Lord of Light, who shone with a brilliance that preceded the sun. There was Oceanus, the great encircling river that wrapped around the edges of the world, holding the oceans in his embrace. There was Mnemosyne, the titaness of memory, who preserved the history of the cosmos in her mind, ensuring that nothing beautiful would ever be forgotten. It feels good to be here, doesn't it? In a world where time moves sluggishly, where the anxiety of survival does not exist. Let yourself feel the warmth of that ancient sun on your skin. Hear the hum of the bees in the clover. It is a lullaby of nature, a hum that vibrates through the very ground. But even in paradise, the wheel of fate turns. Cronus, for all his power and majesty, carried a seed of fear in his heart. It was a whisper from his parents, Gaia and Uranus, a prophecy that drifted like a cold draft through the warm air of the Golden Age. You, who rose to power by surpassing your father, shall be surpassed by your own son. This prophecy gnawed at Cronus. The king of time began to fear the future. He looked at his paradise and saw only the threat of losing it. The Golden Age began to dim, not for the world, but for the king. Paranoia is a heavy crown to wear, and Cronus wore it day and night. Rhea, beautiful and fertile, began to bear children. These were not titans. They were something new. They were something brighter, more volatile, more distinct. They were the first Olympians. But Cronus, blinded by the prophecy, couldn't see them as his children. He saw them only as usurpers. He saw them as the end of his reign. And so, in one of the most tragic turns of ancient lore, Cronus decided to stop time, or at least to stop the future. As each child was born, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon, Cronus did not allow them to grow. He did not allow them to walk upon the earth. He swallowed them. Now, within the dreamscape of our story, don't imagine this as a gruesome act of violence. In the logic of the gods, this was a containment. Cronus took them back into himself. He imprisoned them within his own divine essence. He wanted to keep them unborn, suspended in the timelessness that he controlled. Inside the vast, dark cavern of their father's being, the young gods slept. They were immortal. They could not die. They merely waited, growing in power, growing in destiny, trapped in a dark, warm limbo. But Rhea mourned. She wandered the golden fields, but the beauty of the world had turned gray in her eyes. The streams of nectar and the honey-dripping trees brought her no joy. She was the flow of life, and her husband was the dam stopping that flow. She looked at her empty arms and felt a sorrow as deep as the earth itself. When she felt the life of her sixth child stirring within her, Rhea made a choice. She chose hope over obedience. She chose the future over the past. She went to her mother, Gaia, and whispered her plan to the earth. Gaia, who loved all life, agreed to help. She guided Rhea away from the golden palaces of the Titans. She led her across the wine-dark sea under the cover of a moonless night to the island of Crete. Crete, a land of high and jagged mountains and deep secret caves. There, in the dark sanctuary of the Cave of Dict, hidden by thick forests and hanging vines, Rhea gave birth to her sixth child. He shone like a star. His eyes held the spark of lightning. His cry was the sound of rolling thunder. She named him Zeus. But Cronus was waiting. He sat on his throne, tapping his fingers, waiting for his wife to present him with the infant, so he could imprison this threat like the others. Rhea returned to the palace, but she did not bring the baby. Wrapped in the swaddling clothes, heavy and round, was not a child, but a smooth, large stone, a piece of the earth itself. With her heart pounding in her chest, Rhea approached the throne. She feigned tears, she feigned submission, and she handed the bundle to Cronus. The king of the Titans, so consumed by his arrogance, so blinded by his fear, did not look closely. He did not check. He felt the weight, assumed it was a godling, and in one great gulp, he swallowed the stone. He settled back onto his throne, satisfied. He believed he had won. He believed he had stopped the prophecy. He believed the golden age would last forever under his iron rule. But far away, on the island of Crete, the true golden age was just beginning to breathe. Little Zeus was not alone. To ensure Cronus would never hear his cries, Rhea had placed guardians outside the cave. These were the Korates, mythical warriors who danced a rhythmic, hypnotic dance. They clashed their spears against their bronze shields. Clang, clang, clang. The sound echoed through the mountains. To the ears of Cronus far away, it sounded like the rumble of a distant storm or the shifting of tectonic plates. But in truth, the rhythmic clashing was a lullaby, drowning out the cries of the infant god, hiding him from the world. Inside the cave, Zeus was nursed by a gentle goat named Amalthea. From her horns flowed ambrosia, the food of the gods. He was fed honey gathered by sacred bees. He grew strong on the milk of paradise, hidden in the womb of the earth. The world outside continued its slow, golden rotation. The Titans ruled, unaware that the clock was ticking, unaware that in a dark cave, the lightning was waiting to strike. But for now, the conflict is distant. The baby sleeps in the cave, safe and warm. The warriors chant their rhythmic song. The stone sits in the belly of the king, a heavy, silent secret. Let the image of that hidden cave settle in your mind. It is a place of safety, a secret hideaway where destiny is protected. The firelight flickers on the cave walls. The smell of pine and goat milk fills the air. The rhythm of the shields is monotonous and soothing. Clang, rhythm, sleep. The Golden Age is beautiful, but it is stagnant. It is a world trapped in amber. And as Zeus sleeps, he dreams of a new world, a world of changing seasons, of challenges, of justice, and of storms that clear the air. But that is the story for the next chapter. For now, rest in the knowledge that hope is hidden safely away. The plan has worked. The mother has saved her child. The future is secure. Feel the tension leave your body, just as Rhea felt the tension leave hers when she knew her son was safe. Let your breathing match the slow, rhythmic waves of the ocean that surrounds the island of Crete. In and out, rising and falling. The Titans sleep on their high peaks. The earth sleeps beneath them. And you too can drift into the deep, restorative silence of the ancient world. Good night, traveler of time. The story waits for you. The wheel of time turns slowly, but it always turns. We leave behind the secret caves of Crete, where the air was thick with the scent of pine and wild thyme. The infant hidden in the shadows had grown. Zeus was no longer a child. He was a force of nature wrapped in the form of a man. Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff, feeling the static electricity in the air just before a storm breaks. That was the presence of Zeus. He was the gathered clouds. He was the promise of rain. He was the silence before the thunder. The time had come to leave the nest. The destiny of the cosmos could not be fulfilled in hiding. Zeus ventured forth from his island sanctuary, crossing the vast blue expanse of the sea to the mainland. His mission was one of liberation, but it began not with a sword, but with a clever whisper. He needed to free his siblings, the brothers and sisters who were trapped within the timeless slumber of their father's stomach. To do this, he sought the help of Metis, the Titaness of wisdom. She was as fluid as thought, as gentle as a sudden realization. Together, they prepared a potion. It was not a poison, but a draught of purification, a mixture of Earth's bitter herbs and wild nectar. Zeus, disguised as a humble cupbearer, entered the golden halls of Cronus on Mount Athos. The Titans sat around their colossal tables, drinking wine that tasted of ancient grapes. The air was heavy with their complacency. They did not notice the young stranger with eyes like electric storms. With a steady hand, Zeus poured the cup for the king. Cronus, suspecting nothing, drank deep. And then the magic took hold. It started as a rumble, deep within the Titan king, like the shifting of tectonic plates. Cronus groaned, his immortality reacting to the potion. And then, one by one, the past was undone. First came the stone, tumbling out to settle on the earth. Then came Poseidon, surrounded by the scent of the ocean. Then Hades, wrapped in shadows. Then Hera, radiant and regal. Then Demeter, smelling of wheat fields. And finally, Hestia, glowing like a warm hearth fire. They emerged not as infants, but as fully grown gods, their divine light undimmed by their imprisonment. The reunion was a moment of profound emotion. Imagine the relief, the tears of joy, the embracing of siblings who had never known one another. The family was whole. The 6 Olympians stood together for the first time, a circle of power that hummed with potential. But Cronus and the other Titans were enraged. The Golden Age was shattering. The sky darkened. The lines were drawn. The war of the Titans, the Titanomachy, had begun. However, the young gods knew they could not win through strength alone. The Titans were mountains. They were the raw elements of the universe. To defeat the old order, Zeus needed weapons that had never been seen before. He needed the help of the forgotten. Guided by his grandmother Gaia, Zeus led his siblings down deep into the belly of the world. They descended past the roots of the mountains, past the underground rivers, into the gloomy depths of Tartarus. There, imprisoned by Cronus long ago, were the elder brothers of the Titans, the Cyclops and the Hecatoncheires. The Cyclops were master smiths, giants with a single eye blazing with the focus of a craftsman. The Hecatoncheires were beings of 100 hands, stronger than hurricanes. Zeus released them from their chains. He spoke to them with respect, offering them freedom in exchange for their aid. Grateful and eager for justice, the Cyclops set to work. Close your eyes and imagine the greatest forge in the universe. Located deep inside a volcanic mountain, the heat was not oppressive, it was a creative, cleansing fire. The rhythmic sound of their hammers began to echo through the earth's crust. Clang, clang, clang. It was a slow, heavy rhythm, like the heartbeat of the planet. For Hades, the eldest brother, they forged the helm of darkness. It was a helmet made of solidified night. When worn, the wearer vanished, becoming as silent as a shadow, able to walk unseen through any defense. For Poseidon, the lord of the waters, they forged the trident. It was a three-pronged spear made of adamant, shimmering with a blue-green light. It held the power to shake the earth and stir the oceans into a frenzy. And for Zeus, the youngest and the leader, they forged the ultimate weapon. They took the raw energy of the cosmos, the light of the stars, the heat of the fire, the speed of the wind, and hammered it into a physical form. They forged the lightning bolt. It was a jagged spear of pure white-hot energy. When Zeus grasped it, the hair on his arm stood up. The air around him crackled with ozone. He held the power of the storm in his hand. Now, fully armed, the Olympians ascended. They took their stand on the high snowy peaks of Mount Olympus. Facing them, across the valleys of Thessaly, the Titans stood on Mount Othrys. For 10 years, the war raged. But do not imagine the chaotic, bloody wars of men. This was a war of elements. It was a slow, majestic collision of forces. When the Titans attacked, it felt like an earthquake. Massive boulders were hurled through the sky, blotting out the sun. When the Olympians countered, it was like a hurricane meeting a volcano. The sound was deafening, yet strangely harmonic. The bass note of the earth groaning against the high pitch of the wind screaming. But the stalemate had to end. Zeus, standing at the precipice of Olympus, raised his master bolt. For the first time in history, the sky ripped open. A blinding flash of white light illuminated the entire world, brighter than 1,000 suns. The thunder that followed was so loud it shook the seabed. Krakoom! Zeus hurled the lightning. Poseidon struck the earth with his trident, shattering the ground beneath the Titans' feet. Hades, invisible in his helm, moved among the enemy, sowing confusion and fear. The Hecatoncheires, with their 100 hands, threw hundreds of boulders at once, a rain of stone that buried the Titan army. The light of the lightning bolts was relentless. It was the light of a new order, piercing the old stagnant darkness. The Titans, blinded and overwhelmed by this coordinated assault of fire, water, and shadow, finally faltered. Cronus, the king who had tried to stop time, fell. The war was over. The dust began to settle. The constant roaring of the battle faded into a ringing silence. The victorious Olympians did not choose to destroy their enemies utterly. Instead, they bound the Titans in chains of adamant and led them down, 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 back into the misty depths of Tartarus. There, the Titans would sleep in the shadows, their time in the sun finished. But one Titan was given a special task. Atlas, who had led the Titan armies, was not sent to the pit. Instead, Zeus placed upon his massive shoulders the weight of the celestial sphere. Picture Atlas now, a figure of immense strength and endurance, standing at the edge of the world. He holds up the sky, keeping it separated from the earth forever. His burden is heavy, but it brings stability to the cosmos. He is the pillar that ensures the sky will never fall again. With the Titans gone, a profound peace descended upon the ravaged earth. The smoke cleared. The rivers, once choked with debris, began to run clear and blue again. The birds returned to the trees. The three brothers, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, gathered on the highest peak of Olympus to divide the rule of the universe. They did not fight, they cast lots, leaving the decision to fate. Zeus drew the sky. He would rule the heavens, the clouds, and the rain, becoming the king of gods and men. Poseidon drew the sea. He would rule the waves, the tides, and all the creatures of the deep. Hades drew the underworld. He would rule the realm of the dead and the hidden riches of the earth. The earth itself, Gaia, would be common ground to all, a place where their powers would mix and mingle. Order had been established. The chaos of the beginning was over. The fear of the Titan rule was gone. Now, imagine the feeling of the world taking a deep, relaxing breath. The atmosphere stabilized. The seasons began to turn in a predictable, comforting cycle. Spring, summer, autumn, winter. High atop Mount Olympus, the clouds parted to reveal a gleaming palace, built by the smith god Hephaestus. It was a home of marble and gold, bathed in eternal light, floating above the worries of the world. The war is over. The storm has passed. The thunder has ceased its rolling and is now just a distant memory. Feel the calm that comes after a great storm. The air is fresher. The world is cleaner. The tension has been released, replaced by a sturdy, unshakable peace. The King of Gods sits on his throne, the lightning bolt resting quietly by his side. He looks out over the green earth, the blue sea, and the white clouds. All is well. All is quiet. Drift now on the winds of this new order. Let the stability of the Olympian rule comfort you. The universe is no longer a place of random chaos, but a place of structure, law, and balance. You are safe under the watch of the new gods. The sky is blue, the ocean is deep, and the earth is solid. Sleep now, in the calm aftermath of the clash of thunder. The war is a distant memory. The clash of titanium shields and the roar of the earth have faded into the annals of history. Now there is only the hum of the wind and the warmth of the sun. Leave the surface of the earth behind. Let your imagination defy gravity. We are rising, slowly and weightlessly, drifting upward like a wisp of smoke from a sacred fire. We pass the soaring eagles, we pass the jagged peaks of the highest mountains, until we reach the barrier of the clouds. But these are not ordinary clouds. They are the gates of Olympus, a shifting, misty curtain of white and gold, guarded by the Horae, the goddesses of the seasons. With a silent gesture, they pull back the veil. Welcome to the home of the gods. You have stepped into a realm of eternal spring. Here, on the summit of Mount Olympus, the weather never turns. There is no biting frost, no scorching heat, and no driving rain. There is only a perpetual golden afternoon. The air is rare and sweet, like breathing in the scent of a blooming orchard after a gentle rain. Before you stands the city of the immortals. It is not built of brick or mortar, but of light and divine will, constructed by the smith god Hephaestus. The roads are paved with marble so smooth and white that it looks like frozen milk. Tall pillars of alabaster rise to support roofs made of gold that shimmer without blinding the eye. Walk with me down these silent, majestic avenues. To your left and right are the mansions of the gods, each one reflecting the nature of its resident. But all paths lead to the center, to the great hall of Zeus. Enter the hall. The ceiling is not made of stone, but is an open window to the highest heavens, a dome of deep velvet blue, where the stars are always visible, even in the light. In the center of the hall, a hearth fire burns. It is the heart of the home, tended to by Hestia. The flames do not crackle or pop, they simply glow, radiating a warmth that seeps into your bones, relaxing every muscle in your body. The gods are gathered here. They recline on couches made of clouds and woven sunlight. This is their time of rest, their time of governance, and their time of feasting. But the food of the gods is not like the food of mortals. Watch as Hebe, the goddess of youth, moves gracefully among them, carrying a golden pitcher. She pours a liquid that flows like liquid sunshine. This is nectar. Imagine the taste of nectar. It is the coolness of water from a mountain spring, the sweetness of wild honey, and the zest of a sun-ripened orange all at once. As the gods drink it, it does not just quench their thirst, it renews their spirit. It flows through their veins not as blood, but as ichor, the golden ethereal life force of immortality. And on the tables lies the ambrosia. It looks like light given form, soft and delicate. To eat ambrosia is to taste perfection. It is said that the scent alone is enough to induce a state of pure, blissful relaxation. It smells of rose petals, of baking bread, of the sea air, of whatever brings you the most comfort. At the head of this magnificent assembly sits Zeus, the king. But today, let us look to the figure beside him. There sits Hera, the queen of heaven. In the stories of men, she is often misunderstood, but here in her own hall, she is the definition of majesty. She sits upon a throne of ivory, inlaid with crystal pomegranates. She is the goddess of marriage, of women, and of the stars in the sky. Visualize her presence. She is tall and statuesque, wearing a diadem that gleams like the moon. Her robes are woven from the finest threads of the universe, shimmering in colors of royal blue and peacock green. In her hand, she holds a scepter topped with a cuckoo bird, a symbol of spring and affection. Her energy is not one of anger, but of intense, protective dignity. She is the watchful mother, the guardian of the sanctity of the home. When she looks out over the world, her gaze is steady and calm. Beside her throne, her sacred animal, the peacock, spreads its tail feathers. The iridescent eyes on the feathers represent the all-seeing nature of the heavens, watching over the sleeping world with 1,000 protective eyes. But the splendor of Olympus is not limited to the sky. The doors of the great hall open, and a cool, salty breeze drifts in, mingling with the scent of flowers. A guest has arrived from the deep. Poseidon, the earth shaker, strides into the hall. He does not live on the mountain. His palace is deep beneath the waves of the Aegean Sea, built of coral and pearl. But he is an Olympian, and he takes his place at the council.
Poseidon is a figure of raw elemental power. While Zeus is the distant sky, Poseidon is the deep, churning reality of the ocean. He wears robes the color of sea foam and deep water, greens, blues, and teals that seem to shift and flow as he moves. His beard is like the whitecaps of the waves, wild and free. In his hand he carries the trident. It is a symbol of his authority, resting against his shoulder. But here, in the peace of Olympus, the trident is still. The seas are calm. Poseidon brings with him the rhythm of the tides. His presence is soothing, like the sound of waves crashing gently against the shore. In and out, in and out. He represents the deep emotions, the unknown depths, and the connection between the land and the water. As he lifts a cup of nectar, you can almost hear the call of the gulls and feel the mist of the ocean spray. But there is one empty throne. It is a throne made of ebony and obsidian, dark and sleek, dark. It belongs to the third brother, Hades. He is not here, and his absence is just as important as his presence would be. Hades is the ruler of the underworld, the realm of the afterlife. He does not dwell in the sunlight of Olympus. He stays in the rich, quiet earth below. But do not fear him. In the ancient mind, Hades was not a villain. He was the wealthy one, the host of the many. He is the unseen one. Think of Hades as the roots of the tree, while Zeus is the branches. You cannot have the soaring heights of Olympus without the deep, anchoring stability of the underworld. Hades ensures the balance. While the gods on Olympus feast and laugh in the eternal light, Hades maintains the quiet, the silence, and the rest. He is the guardian of the gems, the gold, and the silver hidden in the rock. His realm is the final resting place, a library of all souls, a place of profound stillness. Occasionally, the poets say, he ascends to Olympus. When he does, a hush falls over the hall, not of fear, but of respect. He brings the cool shadow that makes the light seem brighter. He brings the reminder of the eternal cycle of life and death. But for tonight, he is in his own realm, keeping the balance, allowing the other gods to bask in the light. The feast continues. The atmosphere is one of perfect harmony. Apollo, the god of light and music, stands and lifts his golden lyre. He plucks a string, and the sound is pure vibration. It is a note so clear that it resonates with the frequency of your own heart. The muses, the 9 sisters of inspiration, begin to sing. Their voices are like a choir of wind chimes, weaving a melody that tells the story of the universe. They sing of the birth of the stars, the flow of the rivers, and the peace of the night. Strum, hum, strum, hum. The sound wraps around you like a warm blanket. Look around the hall one last time. See the gods in their repose. Ares, the god of war, has set aside his spear and shield. He is resting, his eyes closed, the fire of battle extinguished by the peace of home. Aphrodite, the goddess of love, smiles, and her smile makes the very air shimmer with pink and gold light. Athena, the goddess of wisdom, sits thoughtfully, her owl perched on her shoulder, blinking slowly. Everything here is perfect. Everything is timeless. The light does not fade, but it softens. It turns into a twilight glow, the color of lavender and soft rose. This is the splendor of Olympus. It is the ceiling of the world. It is the dream that humanity has looked up to for thousands of years. It is a place where the worries of the earth cannot reach. The noise of the traffic, the stress of the day, the ticking of the clock, none of it exists here. There is only the nectar, the ambrosia, and the quiet, confident power of the gods. As you linger in this golden hall, you feel a heaviness in your limbs. It is a good heaviness. It is the feeling of being completely safe, completely provided for. You are a guest of the king and queen. You are under the protection of the sky and the sea. The lyre of Apollo plays a slower, softer melody now. The notes are like raindrops falling on a quiet lake. Plink, plink, plink. The gods are settling into their rest. Even the immortals enjoy the pleasure of stillness. Hera leans back on her throne. Poseidon watches the clouds drift by. Zeus looks down at the world, at you, and nods. The gates of clouds are slowly closing, sealing this magical world away, keeping it safe until you return. You are drifting back down, carried by the gentle winds, back to your own bed, back to your own time. But you carry a piece of Olympus with you. The warmth of the hearth fire is still in your chest. The taste of the nectar is still on your tongue. The peace of the gods is now your peace. The mountain stands tall and silent against the stars. The home of the gods is quiet, and you too are quiet. Drift away now. Let the image of the golden palace fade into the soft blackness of sleep. The gods are watching. The universe is in balance. All is well. Good night from the heights of Mount Olympus. As the golden gates of Mount Olympus close above us, we drift back down toward the surface of the earth. We leave the realm of nectar and ambrosia, descending through the clouds until our feet touch the soft grassy banks of a winding river. The war is over. The Titans are gone. The world is green and lush. But if you look closely, you will notice a silence that feels incomplete. The forests are filled with animals, deer grazing in the meadows, birds singing in the canopy, fish darting through the streams. But there is no one to name them. There is no one to look up at the stars and wonder. The earth was waiting for us. Enter Prometheus. He was a Titan, but he had sided with Zeus during the Great War. His name means forethought, for he could see the potential of the future before it happened. While the Olympians feasted in the sky, Prometheus walked the earth, his heart heavy with a desire to create. Imagine him kneeling by the muddy banks of a river in the region of Boeotia. The sun is warm on his back. He dips his large, strong hands into the wet clay. It is cool and malleable. With the patience of a master potter, he begins to shape a figure. He does not shape it like the beasts, with their heads looking down at the grass. He shapes this new being to stand upright, like the gods, so that it might look up toward the heavens. He smooths the limbs, he carves the fingers, he molds the face. This was the first human. But it was only a shell of mud. It needed a spark. It needed a soul. Athena, the goddess of wisdom, who admired Prometheus's craftsmanship, descended from the sky. She breathed into the clay figure. Whoosh! A gentle breath of life. The chest rose, the eyes opened, humanity began. But this early world was hard for these new creatures. The animals had fur to keep them warm, claws to defend themselves, and wings to fly away. Humans had none of these things. They were naked, soft-skinned, and shivering. Prometheus watched his children with a deep, aching love. He saw them huddled together in caves when the sun went down. He saw them trembling when the winter winds blew from the north. The nights were long, dark, and terrifying. They ate their food raw. They couldn't see in the dark. They were frail. Prometheus knew what they needed. He knew there was one element that belonged only to the gods, a power that could turn a cave into a home. They needed fire. But Zeus, the king of gods, had forbidden it. He believed fire was too dangerous, too divine for these mortal creatures. He wanted to keep the spark on Olympus. Prometheus, however, loved his creation more than he feared the king. Let your mind visualize the stealth of the Titan. It is twilight. The sky is a deep bruised purple. Prometheus begins to climb. He does not take the main road to Olympus. He climbs the back ways, the secret paths known only to the elder gods. He reaches the summit. The gods are asleep. The only light comes from the eternal hearth fire that burns in the center of Zeus's palace. The same fire we rested by in the last chapter.
Prometheus moves silently, like a shadow. He carries with him a stalk of giant fennel, a plant with a hollow, dry center. He creeps to the hearth. He does not take the whole fire. He takes only a seed. He touches the tip of the fennel stalk to the embers. Sizzle. A tiny glowing spark catches inside the stalk. It burns slowly, hidden within the plant, a secret orange gem of heat and light. Prometheus turns and descends. He moves quickly now, carrying the most precious gift in history. He brings the star down to the earth. Imagine that first night. A group of humans is huddled in the darkness, cold and afraid. Suddenly, Prometheus appears. He breaks the stalk. He touches it to a pile of dry leaves and twigs. Snap, crackle, whoosh. For the first time on Earth, a campfire blooms. Visualize the colors. The darkness is pushed back by a warm, dancing circle of orange and gold. The heat radiates outward, touching the cold skin of the humans. They draw closer, their eyes wide with wonder. They hold out their hands, feeling the warmth seep into their fingers, relaxing their tense muscles. Fire changed everything. With fire, they could cook their food, making it savory and warm. With fire, they could harden their tools. With fire, they could gather around the hearth and tell stories. The cave was no longer a place of hiding. It was a home. Prometheus had given them the spark of civilization. He stood back in the shadows, watching the firelight dance in their eyes, and he smiled. But actions have consequences. The smoke from those first fires rose up, curling into the sky, signaling to Zeus that his command had been broken. We will not dwell on the punishment of Prometheus tonight. That is a tale of harshness, and tonight is for rest. Instead, we focus on the other result of this rebellion, the arrival of the first woman. To balance the gift of fire, Zeus ordered the creation of Pandora. She was not made of mud alone. She was crafted by Hephaestus, the smith god, to be as beautiful as a statue coming to life. Every god gave her a gift. Aphrodite gave her grace and deep emotion. Hermes gave her persuasion. Apollo gave her music. Athena clothed her in silvery robes. Her name, Pandora, means all-gifted. She was sent down to earth not as a punishment, but as a complex blessing. She was given to Epimetheus, the brother of Prometheus, and she brought with her a jar. History often calls it a box, but in the ancient days it was a pithos, a large earthen jar sealed with a heavy lid. Pandora was curious. Who wouldn't be? She had been given a mind that sought to understand the world. She sat in her garden, tracing the patterns on the clay jar. The world around her was the golden age we spoke of earlier. Perfect, painless, but perhaps a little static. One quiet afternoon, when the wind was still and the birds were silent, Pandora's hand rested on the lid. She did not mean to cause harm. She only wanted to see what was hidden inside. She lifted the lid. Now, do not imagine demons or monsters flying out. In this story, think of them as shadows. Think of them as the inevitable weights of existence. Out of the jar flew the spites. Old age, which makes the bones tired. Toil, which makes the muscles ache after a long day. Sorrow, which brings the cleansing tears.
illness which demands we rest and recover. They drifted out like moths, dispersing into the wind to settle over the human world. It was the end of the perfect paradise, but it was the beginning of the real human experience. Without sorrow, we cannot know joy. Without tiredness, we cannot know the exquisite pleasure of sleep. Pandora, startled, slammed the lid back down. She panicked, her heart beating fast. She thought she had ruined everything. She pressed her ear to the jar. The heavy, dark things had all gone. The jar felt empty. But then she heard something. It was not a scratching or a growling. It was a soft, fluttering sound, like the wings of a butterfly against a window pane. It was a small, delicate vibration. There was one thing left inside. Prometheus and the gods had placed it at the very bottom, hidden beneath all the hardships. Pandora lifted the lid one last time, just a crack, and out flew Elpis, hope. It was a small spirit, glowing with a soft bioluminescent light. It didn't rush away like the others. It hovered near Pandora, brushing against her cheek like a kiss. This is the most beautiful paradox of the ancient myths. The world now had cold winds, but humans had fire to warm them. The world now had sorrow and fatigue, but humans had hope to heal them. Hope is the belief that tomorrow will be better. Hope is the feeling that keeps us going when the night is dark. It is the quiet companion that sits by your bedside while you sleep. Imagine that scene now. The first humans gathered around Prometheus's fire. The flames are crackling gently. Pop, hiss. The warmth is wrapping around them like a blanket. And fluttering above them, invisible but felt, is the spirit of hope. The fire warms the body. Hope warms the soul. The gift of Prometheus was not just the flame. It was the ability to survive, to endure, and to create. And the gift of Pandora was not just the jar. It was the resilience to face a world that is not perfect, but is still beautiful. As you lie there now, feel the warmth of your own blankets. It is a modern echo of that first fire. Feel the safety of your room. You are protected from the cold, just as those first ancestors were. Let the image of the glowing jar fade from your mind. Let the image of the flickering campfire settle in your thoughts. Watch the flames dance, orange, yellow, red. They move in a rhythmic, hypnotic dance, up and down, bright and dim. The smoke rises, carrying your worries up and away, dissolving them into the night sky. The fire is steady. Hope is present. The world of men has begun. It is a world of contrast, light and dark, work and rest, wakefulness and sleep. And now it is your time for rest. Your work is done. The fire is tended. The door is locked. You can close your eyes. Prometheus watches from the shadows, content that his children are warm. Pandora sleeps in the garden, with hope perched on her shoulder. Drift deeper into the warmth. Drift deeper into the story. The next chapter awaits, but for now, there is only the gentle glow of the embers fading into the night. We leave the flickering hearth fires of the first humans behind us now. Let the smoke from their chimneys dissolve into the clear blue air. We are moving away from the settlements, away from the clay jars and the tools, and stepping into the timeless embrace of the wild. Come with me into the deep, ancient woods of Arcadia. Here the world is green and dappled with sunlight. The ground beneath you is soft, cushioned by centuries of fallen leaves and thick velvet moss. The air smells of pine needles, damp earth, and wild mint. It is a place where the modern world has never touched, a place where magic still lives in the roots of the trees and the spray of the waterfalls. In the Greek imagination, the wilderness was not empty. It was crowded with divine presence. It was the playground of two of the most radiant Olympians, the twin archers, the children of Zeus and Leto, Apollo and Artemis. Let us start with the light. Let us start with Apollo. He is the god of the sun, of music, of healing, and of truth. Imagine him not just as a figure, but as a presence of golden warmth. When the sun breaks through the canopy of the trees, creating those beams of light that dance on the forest floor, that is Apollo. Every morning, in the mythology of the skies, Apollo steps into his sun chariot. It is a vehicle of blinding beauty, made of gold and gems that catch the light. It is drawn by 4 magnificent horses. Legend names them Pyroas, Eos, Aethon, and Phlegon. Fire, dawn, blaze, and heat. But these are not wild beasts. They are disciplined, majestic creatures with manes of white fire. Visualize the slow, steady arc of the sun across the sky. It is not a race, it is a procession. Apollo guides the chariot with a steady hand, ensuring that the light touches every corner of the earth. He warms the olive groves, he ripens the grapes on the vine, he wakes the sleeping flowers. But Apollo is also the god of music, and here in the quiet of the forest is where his melody is sweetest. He carries a lyre, an instrument originally made from a tortoise shell, strung with silver cords. When Apollo plays, the universe stops to listen.
Close your eyes and try to hear it. It is the sound of perfect harmony. Pluck, hum, resonate. The notes are clear and liquid, like water dropping into a silver bowl. His music is the cure for anxiety. It is said that when Apollo plays, the lion stops hunting the deer, the wind stops blowing, and the troubled mind finds instant peace. He is the leader of the muses, the 9 goddesses of inspiration. Sometimes, in the heat of the midday sun, they gather in a glade. If you are very quiet, you might hear them. Their voices are the breeze rustling through the leaves. They sing of history, of astronomy, of poetry. It is a lullaby of knowledge, a reminder that there is beauty and order in the world. But the forest does not just belong to the sun. It belongs to the spirits that live within it. As you walk deeper into the woods, you realize you are never truly alone. The Greeks believed that every part of nature had a soul, a spirit, a guardian. These are the nymphs. Look at the great oak tree standing tall in the clearing. It is not just wood and bark. Inside it lives a dryad. The dryads are the spirits of the trees. Their lives are bound to the forest. They are shy, gentle beings, their skin the color of bark, their hair like cascading leaves. When the wind blows and the trees sway, it is the dryads dancing. When you hear the leaves rustling, shh, 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 it is the dryads whispering to one another, sharing the secrets of the earth. Move toward the sound of running water. There is a brook bubbling over smooth gray stones. The water is clear and cold. Here live the naiads, the nymphs of the fresh water. They are the laughter of the river. Imagine them sitting on the riverbanks, their feet dipped in the cool current, braiding water lilies into their hair. The sound of the stream, that constant rhythmic bubbling, is their voice. It is one of the most relaxing sounds in the world. Bubble, splash, flow. It washes away stress, carrying it downstream, leaving only clarity behind. These spirits, the dryads in the trees, the naiads in the water, the oreads on the mountain peaks, remind us that the earth is alive. It is breathing. It is watching over us with a gentle, non-judgmental gaze. As the day begins to fade, the golden light of Apollo softens. The sun chariot dips below the western horizon, painting the sky in shades of violet, indigo, and soft pink. The shadows lengthen. The air grows cooler. It is time for the other twin to emerge. Enter Artemis. She is the goddess of the moon, the hunt, and the wilderness. While Apollo represents the glory of the day, Artemis represents the mystery and the sanctity of the night. She is the protector. She is the maiden of the silver bow. In the stories, Artemis is a hunter, but she is also the protector of wildlife. She is the guardian of the young, the fawn hidden in the thicket, the bear cub sleeping in the cave. She ensures the balance of nature. Visualize her moving through the twilight forest. She does not stomp or break twigs. She moves with the silence of an owl in flight. She wears a tunic of saffron and silver, and on her feet are sandals that make no sound. Around her, the forest transforms. The birds of the day fall silent, tucking their heads under their wings. The creatures of the night awaken. The crickets begin their rhythmic chirping. Chirp, chirp, chirp. It is the heartbeat of the night. Artemis brings the moon with her. Look up through the branches of the trees. The silver light of the moon filters down, turning the leaves into lace. It is a cool, calming light. It does not demand your attention like the sun. It invites you to rest. She is accompanied by her hunting dogs, but they do not bark. They trot silently by her side, their breath visible in the cold air. They are guardians, patrolling the boundaries of the dream world, keeping nightmares at bay. There is a profound sense of safety in the woods of Artemis. She is the one who watches over us when we are most vulnerable. She is the patron of the sleeping world. Imagine finding a clearing in this sacred forest. The grass is thick and soft. The moonlight turns the dew on the grass into thousands of tiny, glittering stars. You lie down, looking up at the night sky. To your right, the lingering warmth of Apollo's sun still radiates from the stones. To your left, the cool breeze of Artemis touches your cheek. You are balanced perfectly between the twins, between the energy of the day and the rest of the night. Listen to the forest. The naiads are still singing in the stream. Flow, flow, flow. The dryads are settling into the trunks of the trees for the night. Creak, settle, hush. The melody of Apollo's lyre hangs faintly in the air, a memory of the day. This is the lighter side of mythology. There are no wars here, no thunderbolts, no jealousies. There is only the eternal cycle of nature. The sun rises and sets. The moon waxes and wanes. The rivers flow to the sea. It is a reminder that you too are part of this nature. Your breath is the wind. Your heartbeat is the drum of the earth. You don't need to do anything right now. You only need to be. Artemis pauses in the clearing. She sees you resting there. She unstrings her silver bow, a sign that there is no danger tonight. She nods to the moon, dimming its light just enough to let you sleep. The forest pulls its blanket of shadows around you. The owl hoots once, a soft, low sound, signaling that the watch has begun. The whisperings of the forest are fading now. They are becoming the stuff of dreams. The rustling leaves are hushing you to sleep. Hush, hush, hush. The sun chariot is parked in the stables of the east, waiting for tomorrow. The moon is high and white in the west, watching over today. The nymphs are asleep in their flowers and their streams. And you
You are drifting deeper into the velvet darkness of the ancient woods, safe, protected, at peace. Let the music of the lyre fade into silence. Let the image of the silver moon be the last thing you see. Good night, traveler of the woods. The moon has risen high above the forests of Arcadia. The whisperings of the nymphs have faded into the gentle rustle of the night wind. As we continue our journey through the mists of time, we move from the divine wilderness into the realm of human endurance. We enter the age of heroes. In the ancient world, a hero was not just a warrior. A hero was a bridge between the earth and the sky, a being who carried the weight of the human condition with divine strength. And of all the heroes who walked the dust of the ancient roads, none cast a longer shadow than Hercules. Tonight, we do not speak of the madness that drove him, nor the violence of battlefields. Tonight, we speak of his labors. We speak of them as a journey of profound endurance, a testament to the power of patience, persistence, and the quiet strength that lives within the heart. Hercules was the son of Zeus, gifted with strength that surpassed measure. But his life was not one of ease. It was a life of service. To purify his spirit, he was tasked with 12 impossible labors. Imagine him now. He is a man of immense stature, his muscles carved like the roots of an ancient oak tree. He stands at the beginning of a long road. The sun is beating down on his shoulders. He takes a deep breath, in and out, filling his massive chest with the air of destiny. He begins to walk. His first test took him to the hills of Nemea. There lived a lion with a coat of golden fur so thick that no arrow could pierce it. It was a creature of silence and shadow, living in a dark cave. Hercules did not hunt this beast with a bow or a sword. He met it on its own terms. He entered the cool, damp darkness of the cave. Visualize the wrestling match not as a frantic fight, but as a slow, heavy embrace of strength. Hercules wrapped his arms around the lion. It was a test of pressure, muscle against muscle, will against will. He held on. He did not let go. The world outside the cave continued to turn, but in the dark, Hercules held fast. Finally, the struggle ceased. The lion faded into sleep. Hercules emerged from the cave wearing the lion's golden skin as a cloak. It was no longer a beast. It was his armor, a warm, golden layer of protection that would shield him from the cold winds of his future journeys. From the hills, he traveled to the swamps of Lerna.
Here, the mist hangs low over the water, thick and white. The air is humid and still. In the center of the swamp lived the Hydra, a creature of many heads. The lesson of the Hydra is one of persistence. For every head that was removed, 2 more would grow in its place. It was a problem that multiplied, much like the worries of a busy mind. But Hercules learned that force alone does not work. He needed help. He called upon his nephew, Iolaus. Together, they found a rhythm. Cut and seal, cut and seal. They used fire to cauterize the wounds, to stop the chaos from growing back. Imagine the scene, the rhythmic swing of the sword, the hissing sound of the torch touching the neck. Hiss, quiet, hiss, quiet. Eventually, the many heads were gone. The chaos was silenced. The swamp became still again, the water glassy and calm. Hercules stood in the mist, breathing heavy, rhythmic breaths, his mind as clear as the water at his feet. But not all labors were about strength. Some were about patience. Consider the Cyrenian hind.
This was a deer sacred to Artemis, with hooves of bronze and antlers of gold. It was faster than the wind. Hercules was told to catch it, but he was forbidden to harm it. And so the chase began. But it was not a sprint. It was a marathon that lasted a full year. Close your eyes and picture the changing seasons as Hercules ran. He tracked the deer through the lush green of spring, his feet rhythmic on the soft grass. Thud, thud, thud. He followed it through the heat of summer, the sun warming his back, the sweat cooling his skin. He tracked it as the leaves turned gold and crunched beneath his sandals in the autumn. He followed it into the deep, silent snows of winter, his breath forming clouds in the crisp air. He did not rush. He did not give up. He simply kept moving, one foot in front of the other, a meditation in motion. At the end of the year, the deer, tired and respectful of his persistence, finally stopped. Hercules gently lifted the golden creature. He did not conquer it, he carried it. He carried the beauty of the wild, earning the respect of the gods through his patience. The labors continued, each one a different texture of work. He traveled to the snowy peaks of Mount Erymanthus to capture a great boar. He drove the beast into a deep snowdrift. Imagine the silence of a snow-covered mountain, the heavy, muffled quiet. Hercules, waist-deep in snow, using the soft, cold powder to slow the beast down until it simply could not move. The cold was a blanket that brought the struggle to a halt. Then there was the cleaning of the Augean stables. This was a task of humility. The stables had not been cleaned in years. The mess was overwhelming. Hercules did not use a shovel. He used his mind. He looked at the landscape. He saw the rivers Alpheus and Peneus flowing nearby. He dug a trench. The sound of digging, shuck, toss, shuck, toss. He diverted the rivers. And then the water came. Imagine the sound of a rushing river. Whoosh, roar, flow. The water swept through the stables, powerful and cleansing. It washed away the filth of decades in a single afternoon. It was the ultimate purification. The cool, fresh water scrubbed the stone floors clean, leaving them sparkling in the sun. Hercules stood back and watched the water flow, feeling the satisfaction of a job well done, feeling the heavy burden of the task wash away with the current. His journey took him to the very edge of the world, to the Garden of the Hesperides. This was a garden where the sun sets, bathed in eternal twilight. Here, golden apples grew on the trees. But to get them, Hercules had to take the place of Atlas. He had to hold up the sky. Feel this sensation in your own body now. The feeling of a heavy weight, the weight of responsibility. Hercules took the sky onto his shoulders. It was heavy, yes, like a mantle of lead, but he was strong enough. He stood there, a pillar of the universe, feeling the cool clouds brushing against his neck, feeling the rotation of the stars above him. For a moment, he was the connection between heaven and earth. He held the cosmos steady so that the world could sleep. And when Atlas returned and Hercules took the apples and walked away, imagine the feeling of that weight being lifted, the relief, the lightness. Let your own shoulders drop now, just as Hercules did. Let the weight of your world slide off, leaving you light and free. Finally, his journey led him to the place few dare to go, the underworld. He was tasked to bring back Cerberus, the three-headed hound of Hades. He descended into the cool, dark caverns of the earth. The air grew silent.
The light faded to a soft blue glow of the phosphorescent moss. He found the great beast sitting by the river Styx. Hercules did not use weapons. He knelt. He spoke to the beast with a voice like deep thunder, calm, commanding, and assured. He wrapped his massive arms around the dog's necks. It was a taming. He soothed the savage nature of the guardian. The dog whimpered and followed him, subdued by the sheer presence of a man who had conquered himself. 12 labors, 12 cycles of the moon, 12 tests of the soul. Hercules had finished. He stood on a high cliff overlooking the sea. His skin was weathered by the sun and the wind. His cloak of lion fur was worn. His beard was flecked with gray. He was tired, but it was the good, heavy tiredness that comes after a long day of honest work. He sat down on a warm rock. He watched the sun dip below the horizon, painting the water in shades of purple and gold. He had endured. He had suffered. He had persisted. And in doing so, he had carved a path for humanity. He showed that we can bear heavy burdens. He showed that we can clean up the messes of the past. He showed that with patience, we can catch the fleeting golden deer of our dreams. The age of heroes was an age of action, yes, but it was also an age of resilience. Hercules closed his eyes, listening to the waves crash against the cliffs below. Crash, sigh, crash, sigh. His muscles, so tense for so long, finally began to relax. The tension left his calves, tired from the running. The tension left his back, tired from holding the sky. The tension left his hands, tired from wrestling the lion. He was just a man now, resting. The stars began to appear above him, the very stars he had once held on his shoulders. Now they watched over him. One day he would join them. He would become a constellation, a picture of strength drawn in light for all eternity. But for now, he simply sleeps. The greatest hero of them all needs his rest. And so do you. You have fought your battles today. You have carried your burdens. You have run your race. Now, like Hercules on the cliffside, you can set it all down. The work is finished. The labors are done. Let the strength of the hero protect you as you drift into the quiet, well-earned sleep of the victorious. We have walked the forests with Artemis and climbed the mountains with Hercules. But now the land ends. The solid earth gives way to the vast, undulating expanse of the Aegean Sea. Can you smell the salt in the air? It is a crisp, cleansing scent. Can you hear the cry of the seagulls circling overhead? The world is opening up. We are leaving the known boundaries of the map and setting sail toward the sunrise. This is the story of the first great voyage, the story of Jason and the Argonauts. It began in the port city of Iolcos at the foot of Mount Pelion. The call had gone out to every corner of Greece. Jason, the rightful king, seeking to reclaim his throne, needed a crew. He was not looking for an army of soldiers, but a brotherhood of heroes. And they answered the call. They came from the north and the south, princes and demigods, sons of the north wind and sons of the sea. Hercules was there. Orpheus, the master musician, was there. Peleus, the future father of Achilles, was there. It was the greatest gathering of noble spirits the world had ever seen. But before they could sail, they needed a ship. This was not just any vessel. It was the Argo.
Imagine the construction of this masterpiece. The wood was harvested from the sacred forests of Mount Pelion, pines that had stood tall for centuries, soaking up the wisdom of the earth. Athena, the goddess of wisdom, guided the hands of the shipbuilder Argus. Picture the hull. It was long and sleek, curved to cut through the waves like a knife. The wood was polished until it shone like amber in the sunlight. But the true magic of the Argo lay in its prow. Athena had brought a beam of sacred oak from the grove of Dodona, a tree that could speak. She fitted this beam into the front of the ship. When the wind blew through the prow, the wood would whisper. It offered guidance. It offered comfort. It was a ship with a soul. The day of departure arrived. The sky was a brilliant, cloudless blue. The 50 heroes took their seats on the benches. 50 oars extended from the sides of the ship, resting on the calm water like the legs of a great water strider. Jason stood at the helm. He gave the signal. Row! The oars dipped into the water. Splash! They pulled back. Whoosh! The ship surged forward. Glide. Let your mind synchronize with that rhythm. It is the most hypnotic rhythm in the ancient world. Dip, pull, glide. Dip, pull, glide. The Argo left the harbor, the white buildings of Iolcos shrinking into the distance until they were just specks against the green mountains. They were alone on the wine-dark sea. Life on the Argo was a life of perfect camaraderie. These men, who were used to being leaders and kings in their own lands, learned to move as one. There is a deep peace in shared purpose. When they rowed, they breathed together. When they rested, they shared stories under the canopy of stars. At the bow of the ship sat Orpheus. He did not row. His job was more important. He played his lyre to peep the rhythm. Strum, strum, strum. His music drifted over the waves. It was said that the fish would jump from the water to listen, and the dolphins would swim alongside the ship, dancing to the melody. When the sea grew rough, Orpheus played a soothing tune, and the whitecaps would settle down, lulled to sleep by his song. The voyage was long. They sailed past islands that looked like emeralds set in a sapphire sea. They stopped at Lemnos, an island of soft breezes and vineyards, where the air smelled of crushed grapes and summer rain. They sailed through the Hellespont, the narrow strait that separates the continents, watching the land drift by on either side. But the greatest test of their journey was the Symplegades, the clashing rocks. These were two massive cliffs that floated in the sea. They were the gatekeepers to the Black Sea. Whenever a ship tried to pass, the rocks would crash together, crushing anything between them. Jason, guided by the advice of the blind prophet Phineas, did not panic. He approached the rocks with patience. He held a white dove in his hands. As the Argo drifted closer to the narrow passage, the water churning between the cliffs, Jason released the dove. The bird flew. It was a streak of white against the dark stone. It flew straight through the gap. The rocks groaned and began to close. Crash! The sound was like thunder, but the dove was fast. The rocks only clipped its tail feathers before separating again, slowly drifting apart. "Now," Jason shouted, "row with all your hearts." The heroes pulled. The muscles of Hercules rippled. The music of Orpheus became a fast, driving tempo. The Argo shot forward like an arrow. The water boiled around them. The shadow of the great rocks fell over the ship, cool and imposing. They could hear the stone grinding against stone as the cliffs began to close again. But the Argo was swift. It was alive. The sacred oak in the prow whispered encouragement. With one final powerful pull, they burst through to the other side,
into the calm, open waters of the Black Sea. Behind them, the rocks clashed one last time and then froze forever, their power broken by the courage of the sailors. They had crossed the threshold. They were now in the mystic east. Days turned into weeks. The sun rose and set, painting the sky in endless variations of orange, pink, and purple. The rhythmic rocking of the ship became their entire world. Rocking, soothing, rocking, soothing. Finally, they reached Colchis, the end of the world. Here, the Phasis River flowed into the sea, and here, in a sacred grove dedicated to Eris, hung the object of their quest, the Golden Fleece. It was the skin of a magical ram that had once flown through the sky. Imagine the fleece. It hangs on the branch of a great oak tree. It is not metallic gold, but a soft, shimmering wool that glows with its own inner light. It radiates warmth. It looks like a piece of the sun caught in the leaves. But it was guarded. Wrapped around the trunk of the tree was a dragon that never slept. His eyes were like burning coals. His scales were green and bronze, shimmering in the twilight. Jason could not defeat this beast with a sword. The quest for the fleece was not about violence. It was about magic and gentleness. He had help. Medea, the princess of Colchis, a woman of profound power and knowledge of the old ways, stood by his side. She had fallen in love with Jason, struck by the arrow of Eros. She approached the dragon. She did not draw a weapon. She held a jar of sleeping potion, brewed from the midnight flowers of the Caucasus Mountains. She began to sing. It was a low, humming chant, a lullaby for a monster. Her voice wove through the air, heavy and sweet. She sprinkled the potion on the dragon's eyelids. The great beast blinked. Its head, heavy and tired, began to sway. Sway and dip, sway and dip. The fire in its eyes dimmed. The coils loosened. With a long, raspy sigh, the dragon lowered its head to the soft grass. The guardian of the fleece was asleep. Jason stepped forward. He reached out and touched the golden fleece. It was soft, warm, and electric. As he pulled it from the branch, the glow illuminated his face. He wrapped it around his shoulders, and for a moment he shone like a god. They returned to the ship. Medea boarded the Argo with them, leaving her old life behind for a new one across the sea. The return journey was long, winding through rivers and seas that appear on no modern map. They sailed the Danube, they sailed the Po. They drifted past the islands of the Sirens, where Orpheus played his lyre so beautifully that the crew did not hear the dangerous calls of the temptresses. But let us fast forward to the end of the voyage. The Argo glides back into the harbor of Iolcos. The hull is weathered, covered in barnacles and seaweed, a testament to the miles traveled. The heroes are older, wiser, their skin bronzed by the foreign suns. They have returned. The circle is complete. The golden fleece was brought ashore, a symbol that the impossible can be achieved. But the true treasure was the journey itself. The night spent sleeping on the deck, listening to the water lap against the wood. The bond of brotherhood that would never be broken. Years later, the Argo was beached on the Isthmus of Corinth. It was dedicated to Poseidon, the god of the sea. Imagine the old ship resting there on the sand. The wind blows through its rigging, making the ropes sing softly. The sacred beam of oak still whispers to the wind, telling stories of dragons and clashing rocks. Eventually, the gods lifted the Argo from the sands. They placed it in the heavens. If you look up at the southern sky on a clear night, you can see the constellation Argo Navis,
the ship. It sails the ocean of the stars forever, silent and peaceful. The voyage is over. The oars are at rest. The heroes have gone to their homes. And you, too, are safe in your harbor. Feel the bed beneath you, steady and supportive like the deck of the Argo. Feel the gentle rhythm of your own breathing. Dip, pull, glide, in and out.
The sea is calm. The stars are bright. The golden fleece glows softly in the memory of the world. Drift along the currents of sleep. The great ship carries you into the night. Sail on, Argonaut. Sail on into the dreams. The Argo has become a constellation in the night sky, sailing the sea of stars. The heroes of the past have laid down their oars, but the tapestry of fate is never finished. The threads are constantly being woven into new patterns. We travel now to a moment of celebration. Let the image of a great mountain rise in your mind, Mount Pelion. It is the home of the centaurs, wild and beautiful, covered in forests of chestnut and beech. Tonight, the mountain is glowing with torchlight. The air is filled with the sound of laughter and the sweet melody of flutes. It is a wedding, and not just any wedding, but the union of a mortal king and a sea goddess. Peleus, a hero of great renown, is marrying Thetis, the silver-footed nymph of the sea. Imagine the banquet. Long tables are set out under the canopy of the trees. The tablecloths are white as sea foam. The plates are made of gold. All the gods of Olympus have descended to attend. Zeus sits at the head of the table, his presence like a warm summer storm. Hera sits beside him, regal and calm. Apollo plays his lyre, the notes drifting through the leaves like golden butterflies. The muses sang of love and eternity. It is a scene of perfect harmony. The wine flows freely. The scent of roasted meats and sweet ambrosia fills the cool mountain air. Thetis looks beautiful, her dress shimmering like the surface of the ocean under the moon. Peleus looks proud, a mortal man welcomed into the company of the divine. But in the ancient world, perfection is a fragile thing. There was one deity who had not been invited, Eris, the goddess of discord. She was not a monster, but she was the spirit of strife, the feeling of friction, the uninvited thought that disrupts a peaceful mind. She stood at the edge of the feast, hidden in the shadows of the trees. She felt the slight of her exclusion, and so, with a flick of her wrist, she cast a single object into the center of the hall. It was an apple, a golden apple. It rolled across the floor, roll, 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 making a soft rhythmic sound against the marble tiles. It came to a stop in the center of the room, gleaming in the torchlight. The music stopped, the laughter died down. Hermes, the messenger god, picked it up. On the skin of the fruit, written in letters of light, was a single word, Callisti, to the fairest. It was a seed of vanity planted in the garden of the gods. Immediately 3 hands reached out. Hera claimed it, for she was the queen of heaven, the wife of Zeus, and surely the most majestic. Athena claimed it, for she was the daughter of Zeus, the goddess of wisdom and war, possessing a beauty that was sharp and clear. Aphrodite claimed it, for she was the very definition of love and beauty, born from the sea foam itself. The argument began. It was not a brawl, but a high, tense vibration in the air. The harmony of the wedding was broken. They turned to Zeus to decide. Who is the fairest, king of gods? But Zeus was wise. He knew that to choose one was to make enemies of the other 2. He looked at his wife, his daughter, and his aunt, and he shook his head. He would not judge.
"There is a shepherd," Zeus said, his voice rumbling like distant thunder, "on the slopes of Mount Ida. He is a mortal, but he has an eye for beauty. He is fair and honest. Let him decide." And so the scene shifts. Leave the wedding feast behind. Let the torches fade. We travel across the Aegean Sea to the coast of Asia Minor, to the great city of Troy. But we do not go to the city yet. We go to the slopes of Mount Ida. It is a hot, lazy afternoon. The cicadas are buzzing in the pine trees. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The air smells of dry grass and wild oregano. A young man is lying in the shade of a tree. His name is Paris. He is a prince of Troy, but he does not know it yet. He was raised as a shepherd, living a simple life of peace. He watches his sheep graze on the hillside. He plays a simple tune on a wooden pipe. He is completely relaxed, his eyes heavy with the afternoon heat. Suddenly, the air changes. The birds stop singing. The wind stops blowing. A light, brighter than the sun, descends onto the mountain. Paris shades his eyes. Before him stands Hermes, holding the golden caduceus. And behind him, floating just above the grass, are the three goddesses. They are terrifyingly beautiful. They shine with an inner light that makes the world around them look pale and gray. Hermes places the golden apple in Paris's hand. It is heavy and warm. "Paris of Troy," Hermes says, "you must choose. Who does the apple belong?" Paris, trembling, looks at them. How can a mortal judge the divine? But the goddesses do not leave it to chance. They begin to offer him gifts. They begin to bribe him. First, Hera steps forward. She shows him a vision. In her eyes, she sees maps of the world. She sees cities with high walls, armies marching in perfect unison, and thrones made of gold. "Choose me," she whispers, her voice like the sound of a scepter striking a floor. "And I will make you the high king of all Asia and Europe. You will have power beyond measure. Nations will bow to you. History will remember you as the greatest ruler of men." Next, Athena steps forward. She removes her helmet, and her gray eyes are full of intense, piercing intelligence. "Choose me," she says, her voice cool and clear like spring water. "And I will give you wisdom and victory in battle. You will never lose a fight. Your mind will be sharper than any sword. You will know the secrets of the universe." It is a noble offer, the clarity of mind, the glory of the victor. Finally, Aphrodite steps forward. She does not show him maps or swords. She loosens the girdle at her waist. The air around her smells of roses and sea salt. Her voice is not a command. It is a caress. It is the sound of a heartbeat. "Choose me," she breathes, "and I will give you love." She shows him an image in the mist. It is a woman with hair like spun gold and eyes like the dark sea. "Her name is Helen," Aphrodite whispers. "She is the most beautiful woman in the world. She is the queen of Sparta. And if you choose me, she will fall in love with you. She will be yours." Paris is young. He is a shepherd who dreams of romance, not war or politics. The promise of the most beautiful woman in the world is a song he can't resist. His heart beats faster. The world narrows down to that vision of Helen. Slowly, with a trembling hand, he extends the golden apple. He passes Hera. He passes Athena. He places the apple in the soft, open palm of Aphrodite. The choice is made. Hera and Athena vanish in a flash of cold light. Their pride is wounded, and in that moment they become the eternal enemies of Troy. But Aphrodite smiles. It is a smile that promises ecstasy,
but hides the tragedy to come. Peleus leaves his sheep. He discovers his royal heritage. He travels to the city of Troy, where he is welcomed as the lost prince by his father, King Priam, and his brother, the noble Hector. But the promise of the goddess drives him. He builds a ship. He sails sail across the Aegean, guided by the winds of Aphrodite, to the land of Sparta. There he meets Helen. She is married to King Menelaus, but when Paris enters the court, the magic of Aphrodite weaves through the room. Their eyes meet. The rest of the world fades away.
Whether she went willingly or was taken by force is a question for the philosophers. In the sleep of history, we see it as a spell, a trance. Under the cover of night, they board Paris's ship. They sail away together, leaving Sparta behind, heading for the high walls of Troy. When Menelaus awoke and found his queen gone, a deep, sorrowful rage filled his heart. He did not shout. He simply called his brother, Agamemnon, the king of Mycenae, the most powerful ruler in Greece. Agamemnon saw an opportunity. He called upon the oath that all the suitors of Helen had sworn long ago to defend her husband's honor. Messengers were sent to every corner of Greece, to the rocky island of Ithaca, to fetch the clever Odysseus, who tried to pretend he was mad to stay with his wife and infant son, to the sandy shores of Pylos, to fetch the wise old Nestor, to the wild lands of Phthia, to fetch the greatest warrior of them all, the young Achilles, whose mother Thetis had dipped him in the river Styx to make him invincible. The call went out. The gathering storm began. Imagine the port of Aulis. One by one, the ships arrived. Black ships with red prows, blue ships with white sails. They filled the harbor until you could walk from one side of the bay to the other across their decks. 1,000 ships. The beach was filled with the smoke of campfires. The air was filled with the sound of armor being polished. Shink, shink, shink. Heroes from every island, every valley, every city united for a single purpose: to sail to Troy, to bring back Helen. But the winds did not blow. Artemis, the goddess of the wild, was angry with Agamemnon for a slight against her sacred deer. She held the winds hostage. The sea was as flat as a mirror. The sails hung limp and heavy. This was the quiet before the catastrophe. The army waited. The sun beat down on the bronze armor. The men looked out at the horizon, dreaming of glory, dreaming of home, unaware that many would never see Greece again. It was a moment of suspension, a breath held in the lungs of history. But eventually, the price was paid. The winds returned. The canvas sails snapped full. Whoosh! The 1,000 ships began to move. The water churned white beneath 10,000 oars. They moved like a massive school of predatory fish, cutting through the waves, heading east, toward the rising sun, toward the city of high walls, toward destiny. On the walls of Troy, the watchmen looked out at the sea. They saw the horizon darken with the fleet. The storm had arrived. But for now, the violence of the war is still in the future. Tonight, we stay with the image of the ships sailing silently under the stars. The rhythmic sound of the oars hitting the water. Splash, stroke, splash, stroke. It is a steady, repetitive sound, like a metronome for your mind. The apple has been given. The choice has been made. The ships are sailing. There is nothing more to be done. The events are in motion, flowing like a river toward the sea. You can detach yourself from the outcome. You are merely the observer, watching the great fleet drift across the dark water. The heroes are sleeping on the decks, wrapped in their cloaks, dreaming of tomorrow. Paris and Helen are sleeping in the high tower of Troy, dreaming of love. The gods are watching from Olympus, silent and attentive. And you are safe in the quiet space between the chapters. The storm is gathering, yes, but it is a distant storm. It cannot touch you here. Here there is only the gentle rocking of the ocean, the wind in the sails, the quiet of the night. Rest now. The great siege awaits, but that is a story for another night. For now, let the fleet sail on into the darkness. The ships have landed. The keels have cut into the sand of the Trojan beach. The sails have been furled, and the great wooden masts stand like a forest of bare trees against the horizon. We are now in the landscape of the Iliad. But let us look away from the swords and the spears. Let us look instead at the world that was built here. For 10 long years, this stretch of coast became a city in itself. The Greeks hauled their black ships up onto the dry sand, propping them up with stones and timber. They built huts of clay and woven wicker. They dug wells. They created a temporary home on the edge of a foreign land. And facing them, across the dusty plain of the Scamander River, stood the city of Troy. Visualize the walls. These were not ordinary fortifications built by mortal hands. Legend tells us they were built by Poseidon, the earth shaker, and Apollo, the sun god, in an age long past. They were massive, angled stones, fitted together so perfectly that not even a blade of grass could grow between them. They were high, smooth, and impenetrable. When the sun hit the walls of Troy in the late afternoon, the golden hour, the city did not look like stone. It looked like a crown of gold resting on the hill of Ilium. Inside those walls, life tried to continue. There were markets, temples to Athena, and wide avenues where the wind from the Dardanelles blew softly. For 10 years, the war was a stalemate. It was not a constant battle. It was a rhythm, a season, a way of life. Imagine the atmosphere of the Greek camp at night. This is where the true feeling of the siege lives. The sun dips below the Aegean Sea. The fighting for the day is done. A truce of twilight descends. Thousands of campfires flicker into light along the beach, mirroring the thousands of stars in the Milky Way above. Flicker, crackle, glow. Walk through the camp in your mind. The air is thick with the smell of roasting meat, of baking bread, of wood smoke, and the salty tang of the sea. You hear the low murmur of men talking, not shouting, just the quiet rumble of stories being shared. They speak of their homes in Argos, in Mycenae, in Ithaca. They speak of the wives they miss and the children who are growing up without them. You hear the soft strumming of a lyre. You hear the rhythmic washing of the waves against the shore. Hush, wash, hush, wash. It is a waiting game, a test of endurance. And amidst this vast encampment and the high city, 2 figures stand taller than the rest, the twin pillars of the war, Achilles and Hector. Let us observe them with respect, for they are the greatest of their age. On the beach, in the largest tent, sits Achilles. He is the son of the sea goddess Thetis. He is beautiful and terrifying. He is known as swift-footed, for he moves like water, fluid and unstoppable. But for much of the story, Achilles is still. He sits by his ships playing a silver lyre, singing old songs of heroes past. He has withdrawn from the fight due to a disagreement with King Agamemnon. His anger is legendary, but his grief is deeper. He knows his destiny. He was given a choice, a long, peaceful life without glory, or a short, glorious life that ends at Troy? He chose the latter, and so he carries a melancholy weight. He is a man who knows he will never go home. He sits by the fire, his golden hair catching the light, a lion at rest, watching the sparks. Inside the walls, in the high palace, stands Hector. He is the prince of Troy, the tamer of horses. If Achilles is the storm, Hector is the rock. He fights not for glory, but for duty. He fights to protect his father, King Priam, his mother, Hecuba, and his city. There is a tenderness to Hector that is rare in ancient myths. Picture the famous scene on the ramparts. Hector is saying goodbye to his wife and their infant son, Astyanax. He reaches out to hold the baby, but the boy cries, frightened by the large horsehair crest on Hector's helmet. Hector does not get angry. He laughs, a soft, warm, fatherly laugh. He takes off the helmet, setting the bronze on the stone. He is just a man now, a father. He picks up his son, kisses him, and prays to Zeus that the boy will be a better man than he is. This is the heart of Troy: love, family, and the desperate desire to protect them. The years passed, the seasons turned. The summer dust coated the armor. The winter rains turned the plain to mud. Spring brought wildflowers that bloomed between the chariot tracks. But the threads of fate eventually pulled tight. The war could not sleep forever.
The sorrow began when Achilles' beloved companion, Patroclus, unable to bear the suffering of the Greeks, donned Achilles' armor. He fought bravely, pushing the Trojans back, but he fell. The light went out of his eyes. When the news reached Achilles, the lion awoke. But it was not a roar of anger. It was a wail of grief so profound that his mother, Thetis, heard it from the bottom of the sea. She rose from the waves like a mist to comfort her son. Achilles returned to the battlefield. He did not fight for Agamemnon. He fought for Patroclus. The meeting between Achilles and Hector was inevitable. It was written in the stars before they were born. The other soldiers stood back. The gods watched from the clouds. They ran around the walls of Troy, the swift-footed chasing the tamer of horses. It was a dance of death, yes, but it was also a moment of supreme connection. Only they could understand each other. Only they were equals. When Hector finally fell, the silence that descended on the plain was heavier than the stone walls. A great light had gone out in Troy. But the story does not end with violence. It ends with grace. One night, under the cover of darkness, King Priam of Troy did the unthinkable. He rode a wagon out of the city gates. He crossed the enemy lines, guided by Hermes, the messenger god, who put the Greek centuries to a deep sleep. Priam walked into the tent of Achilles. The old king knelt before the young warrior. He took the hands of the man who had killed his son, and he kissed them. "Think of your own father," Priam whispered. "He is old, like me. He waits for you." The ice in Achilles' heart shattered. The rage dissolved into tears. The two enemies, the young demigod and the old king, wept together. They wept for Hector. They wept for Patroclus. They wept for the shortness of life and the cruelty of war. In that tent, illuminated by a single flickering lamp, humanity was restored. Achilles granted a truce. He gave Hector's body back to his father. For 12 days, the armies did not fight. The plain was quiet. Troy mourned its protector with dignity and fire. And soon after, the destiny of Achilles was fulfilled. He was invincible, save for his heel, where his mother had held him when she dipped him in the Styx. Paris, guided by Apollo, loosed an arrow from the walls.
It flew silently through the air. It struck the heel. The great hero fell. Achilles, the glory of the Greeks, became dust and legend. His armor was set aside. His ashes were mixed with those of Patroclus, so they would be together for eternity. Now imagine the battlefield is empty. The great heroes are gone. Hector sleeps in the earth of Troy. Achilles sleeps by the sea. The 10-year war has exhausted everyone. The energy is spent. The fires in the Greek camp are burning low, just glowing embers in the sand. The torches on the walls of Troy are dimming. The atmosphere is heavy with the feeling of an ending. The wind blows across the plain, rustling the tall grass. Swish, swish, swish. It carries the secrets of the dead and the dreams of the living. The stalemate is broken, but the war is not won. Yet, for tonight, there is a pause. The siege has become a part of the landscape. The ships, the walls, the tents, they are all resting under the indifferent, beautiful gaze of the moon. You have walked the ramparts with Hector. You have sat by the fire with Achilles. You have seen that even in the midst of conflict, there is love, there is respect, and there is the possibility of peace. Let the image of the high golden walls of Troy fade into the distance. Let the sound of the ocean wash away the noise of the chariots. The camp is sleeping. The centuries are nodding off. You are safe in the quiet tent of history. The greatest heroes have laid down their swords. You can lay down your worries. The siege is a story of the past. Your rest is the reality of the present. Drift now. The fire is out. The smoke rises. The night is still. Good night from the shores of Ilium. The sun rises and sets. The moon waxes and wanes. The tides of the Aegean Sea pull back and forth against the shore. 10 years have passed. A decade of bronze and blood, of dust and glory. And yet, the walls of Troy still stand. Those massive stones, fitted together by the gods themselves, remain unbroken. The greatest hero, Achilles, is gone, his ashes buried in a golden urn. The greatest defender, Hector, sleeps in the earth. The armies are exhausted. The plain of the Scamander is silent, the grass growing tall where chariots once raced. Force had failed. The spear and the shield could not breach the city. It was time for the mind. Enter Odysseus. He was the king of Ithaca, the man of twists and turns, the favorite of Athena. While other men sharpened their swords, Odysseus sharpened his wits. He sat by the campfire staring into the embers, and he realized that Troy could not be taken by strength. It had to be taken by surprise. It had to be taken from within. He looked up at the stars, and a plan began to form. A plan whispered to him by the goddess of wisdom herself. The art of war is deception, she seemed to whisper in the night wind. Odysseus stood up. He gathered the remaining leaders. He did not speak of attacks or sieges. He spoke of a gift, an offering, a wooden statue so magnificent that the Trojans would not be able to resist bringing it into their sacred city. And so the construction began. We travel now to a hidden cove, away from the prying eyes of the Trojan watchtowers. The Greeks called upon Epeius, the master carpenter. Imagine the sound of the work. It was not the clang of metal, but the soft, rhythmic sound of the saw and the plane. Shh, shh, shh. They felled tall fir trees from the slopes of Mount Ida. The air smelled of fresh resin, of pine sap and sawdust. It was the smell of the forest, clean and sharp. Piece by piece, the structure rose.
It was a horse, a colossal creature of wood, standing taller than the city gates. Its flanks were made of smooth, polished planks. Its neck was arched in a proud curve. Its eyes were inlaid with gemstones that caught the light. But this horse was hollow. It was a vessel, a belly designed to hold the bravest of the brave. When the work was done, the plan was set in motion. One morning, the sun rose over the city of Troy, but the view from the walls had changed. The beach was empty. The thousands of black ships were gone. The tents were struck. The fires were cold. The Greek army had vanished, or so it seemed. They had sailed just beyond the horizon, hiding behind the island of Tenedos, waiting in the silence of the sea. On the beach, only one thing remained: the wooden horse. It stood there, immense and solitary, casting a long shadow across the sands. The gates of Troy opened. Kriak. For the first time in 10 years, the people of Troy walked out onto the plain without fear. They touched the grass. They ran into the sea. They laughed. They believed the war was over. They believed the Greeks had given up and sailed home. They gathered around the great horse. They marveled at its craftsmanship. They ran their hands over the smooth wood, unaware of the hearts beating silently on the other side of the planks. Inside the belly of the beast, Odysseus sat in the dark. Beside him were Menelaus, Diomedes, and the other chosen heroes. They held their breath. They sat in cramping stillness, listening to the muffled voices of the Trojans outside. Thump, thump, thump. The sound of their own hearts seemed deafening in the cramped darkness. A debate raged outside. Some wanted to burn the horse. Some wanted to push it into the sea. But fate and the cunning spies left behind by Odysseus convinced them that this was an offering to Athena. If they brought it inside their walls, Troy would never fall. And so the tragedy began. Ropes were attached to the wooden legs. Rollers were placed beneath the hooves. Heave, pull, heave, pull. The great horse began to move. It rumbled across the plain. It rumbled through the Scaean gates. It was so tall that legend says they had to dismantle part of the lintel to fit it through. The enemy was now inside the walls. That night, Troy celebrated. Imagine the relief, the sheer, overwhelming release of 10 years of tension. Wine flowed like water. Songs of victory echoed through the streets. The temples were filled with garlands of flowers. They feasted, they danced, they toasted to the future, a future they believed was safe. But as the moon climbed high into the sky, the celebration turned to exhaustion. The music faded. The laughter died down. The wine took its effect. One by one, the lights in the windows went out. The city of Troy fell into a deep, heavy sleep. It was a sleep of false security, a sleep of the doomed. The wind blew softly through the empty streets, stirring the discarded garlands. Rustle, rustle, rustle. The dogs did not bark. The guards, heavy with wine, leaned against their spears and dozed off. Silence. Absolute, heavy silence descended upon the great city. The only sound was the wind and the distant wash of the sea. And then, a sound from the horse. Click. A latch was undone. A panel in the belly of the horse slid open. A rope ladder uncoiled, dropping silently to the cobblestones. First came Odysseus. He moved like a shadow, sliding down the rope. Then Menelaus, then the others. They landed on the ground with the softest of thuds. They drew their swords, but the steel did not ring. They moved like ghosts through the sleeping city. They did not shout, not yet. They moved to the gates. The massive doors that had withstood armies for a decade were now unguarded. Odysseus killed the sleeping sentries, a quick, silent mercy. They threw open the gates. Then a signal was lit. A torch waved from the highest tower. Out at sea, in the velvet darkness, the Greek fleet saw the fire. The oars dipped into the water. Splash, stroke, splash, stroke. The black ships returned, gliding toward the shore like predators in the night. The army poured onto the beach. They poured through the open gates. The fall of Troy did not begin with a battle. It began with a whisper. And then the fire started. We will not dwell on the violence of the sack. In the realm of sleep, we view it from a distance, as if we are the gods looking down from Mount Olympus. We see the city of Troy, which had been a jewel on the hill, suddenly begin to glow. First one building, then another. The flames licked the sky, turning the night into a bloody dawn. The smoke rose up, a gray column carrying the prayers and the history of a civilization up to the indifferent stars. It was the end of an era. The king, Priam, fell. The tall towers crumbled. The wealth of generations, the gold, the tapestries, the art, was consumed by the heat. From the outside, it was a terrible, majestic sight. The fire reflected in the sea, turning the water red. The sparks flew upward, joining the constellations. The inevitability of it was heavy. This was the will of the fates. No wall is high enough to keep out destiny. No gate is strong enough to keep out time. Inside the chaos, the surviving women of Troy, Hecuba, Andromache, Cassandra, gathered. They were no longer queens and princesses. They were captives. They watched their home burn, their tears drying instantly in the heat of the fire. They were the witnesses to the death of their world. But amidst the destruction, there was one thread of hope for the future. A Trojan prince named Aeneas saw that the city was lost. He did not die in the flames. He took his father Anchises on his back. He took his son Ascanius by the hand. He fought his way out of the burning city. He escaped into the darkness of the countryside. He would travel far to the west. He would eventually lay the foundations for a new empire, Rome. Even in the fall of one greatness, the seeds of another are sown. But for Troy, it was the end. By the time the sun actually rose in the east, the city was gone. The fire had burned itself out. The walls were blackened shales. The noise had ceased. The Greek ships were loaded with spoils. Helen, the face that launched 1,000 ships, was led back to the ship of Menelaus. Her beauty was untouched, but her eyes held the reflection of the burning city. The fleet prepared to leave. The wind kicked up, blowing the ash across the plain. Whoosh, swirl, whoosh, swirl. It is a somber feeling. The silence that follows a great noise is the deepest silence of all. The plain of Troy was empty again. The wooden horse stood amidst the ruins, a hollow victory monument, its job done. The war was over. The great 10-year struggle had ended in a single night of fire and wood. The heroes were tired. They just wanted to go home. They looked out at the sea, yearning for the familiar shores of Greece. But the sea is vast, and the gods are not done with them yet. One hero in particular has a long journey ahead. The man who designed the horse, the man of the mind, Odysseus. But that is the final chapter of our story. For now,
Let the smoke clear. Let the heat dissipate. The great empire has fallen. The history books have been written. The night has reclaimed the land. Feel the finality of it, the letting go. Just as the walls of Troy finally gave way, you can let your own defenses down. You do not need to stand guard anymore. The battle is over. The city sleeps in the ashes of memory. And you can sleep in the safety of the present. Drift away from the coast of Asia Minor. Drift away from the ruin. Turn your face toward the open sea. Peace, silence, rest. The smoke of Troy has long since faded into the blue sky. The great wooden horse has become a ghost of history. The heroes have scattered like seeds in the wind. But for one man, the war was only the beginning of the story. For Odysseus, the king of Ithaca, the road home would be the longest of all. We enter now into the Odyssey, but tonight we do not focus on the monsters or the storms. We focus on the drift. We focus on the feeling of being carried by the currents of fate across a vast, mysterious ocean. Odysseus's journey was a voyage of 10 years. Added to the 10 years of war, he was away for 20 years, a lifetime. But in the dreamscape of the sea, time behaves differently. It stretches and compresses, rolling like the waves. Imagine the sensation of being on a raft in the middle of the wine-dark sea. There is no land in sight. There is only the horizon, a perfect circle where the water meets the sky. The sun warms the salt on your skin. The rhythm of the swell is a constant cradle. Up and down, up and down. His journey took him to places that exist only on the maps of the imagination. He drifted to the land of the lotus eaters, where the afternoon is eternal. The air there was thick with the scent of honey and blossoms. To eat the lotus was to forget the pain of the past, to forget the urgency of the future, and to exist only in a drowsy golden present. It was a land of pure sleep. But Odysseus had to move on. His heart was a compass needle that pointed only one way, north, to Ithaca, to home. Perhaps the most profound stop on his journey was the island of Ogygia. This was the home of the nymph Calypso. Picture this island. It is the most beautiful place in the world. It is lush with violet meadows where wild parsley and iris grow thick and soft. The air smells of burning cedar and thyme from Calypso's hearth. For 7 years, Odysseus stayed here. 7 years of stillness. Calypso, with her beautiful braided hair, sang with a voice like a silver bell as she wove on her loom. Shuttle, click, weave, slide. Odysseus would sit on the shore, looking out at the sea. It was a time of deep restoration, a time where the trauma of the war was slowly washed away by the gentle tides of the goddess's island. He was safe there, hidden from the world, held in a cocoon of time. But the human heart craves its own hearth. Immortality in a paradise was not enough. He needed the rugged, rocky soil of his own home.
And so, the gods eventually relented. They allowed him to build a raft. They sent a gentle wind to fill his sail. He drifted away from the magic, back toward the mortal world. His final passage was provided by the Phaeacians, the master sailors of the ancient world. Their ships had no steersmen and no rudders. The ships themselves knew the thoughts of the men and knew the way across the sea. They laid Odysseus down on the deck. They covered him with soft woolen blankets and cloaks. And as the magical ship cut through the water, faster than a falcon flies, Odysseus fell into a sleep so deep it was like a little death, a sleep of total surrender. He slept through the night.
He slept as the morning star, the brightest star of all, rose in the east to herald the dawn. And while he slept, the ship slid silently into a hidden cove, the cove of Phorcys, on the island of Ithaca. The sailors gently lifted him, still wrapped in his blankets, and laid him on the sand of his homeland. They left him there, under the branches of a sacred olive tree, and sailed away. Odysseus awoke. The light was different here. The smell was different. It was the smell of pine, of crushed olives, of the sea crashing against sharp rocks. He was home. The reunion was not immediate, but it was inevitable. He made his way to his palace, disguised as a beggar, testing the loyalty of his household. He found his wife, Penelope. For 20 years she had waited. She was the anchor to his ship. She had kept the kingdom together, weaving a shroud by day and unraveling it by night, a metaphor for the endless waiting, the doing and undoing of time. When they finally recognized each other, the relief was a physical force. It was not an explosion of fireworks. It was the feeling of a key finally turning in a lock that has been rusted shut for decades. Click, open. They went to their bed, and this is no ordinary bed. Years ago, Odysseus had built their bedroom around a massive, ancient olive tree. He had not cut the tree down. He had used the trunk as one of the bedposts, rooted deep in the earth. The bed was literally part of the island. It was alive. It was unshakable. That night, the goddess Athena held back the dawn. She made the night longer, stretching the darkness so that the king and queen could rest. They whispered their stories in the dark, the stories of the war, the stories of the sea, the stories of the waiting. And then, finally, they slept. The wanderer was home. The circle was closed. The peace of Ithaca descended upon the house. The eternal legacy. And now we pull back. We leave the bedroom of Odysseus and Penelope. We leave the rocky shores of Ithaca. We leave the ancient world of Greece entirely. We rise up higher and higher until the map of the Mediterranean is just a blue and brown jewel below us. We are back in the present moment. You are in your bed. The year is different, the world is louder, and the pace is faster. But look up. If you were to walk outside tonight and look at the sky, you would see the same stars that Odysseus used to navigate his ship. You would see the Pleiades, the seven sisters, dancing in the dark. You would see Orion, the hunter, striding across the heavens. You would see the Great Bear, turning slowly around the pole star. These stories, the chaos of creation, the rule of Zeus, the labors of Hercules, the tragedy of Troy, and the journey of Odysseus, they are not just dust in a library. They are the architecture of our dreams. They are the constellations of our culture. When we speak of a Herculean task, we are remembering the hero. When we speak of a siren song, we are remembering the voyage. When we speak of chaos, we are remembering the beginning. When we feel panic, we are feeling the presence of Pan, the god of the wild. The Greeks gave us a gift. They gave us a language for our emotions. They taught us that life is a mixture of tragedy and comedy, of labor and rest, of wandering and coming home. They taught us that even the gods have struggles, and that endurance is the greatest virtue of all. The myths are a comfort. They tell us that others have walked this road before. They tell us that after the war, there is peace. After the storm, there is the calm harbor. After the long journey, there is home. You have taken a journey tonight. You have traveled through thousands of years. You have witnessed the birth of the universe and the fall of empires. And now your journey is done. You have reached your own Ithaca. Your bed is your sanctuary. Your room is your temple of rest. The muses have stopped singing. Their voices have faded into a soft hum. Apollo has put away his lyre. Artemis watches from the moon, her silver bow unstrung. The fates have stopped spinning the thread for the day. They have set down their shears. The story is complete. The book is closed. The fire is out. There is nothing left to do but drift. Drift like Odysseus on the calm sea. Drift like the clouds over Mount Olympus. Drift into the deep, healing silence of the night. The stars are watching over you. The earth is holding you. The stories are keeping you safe. Sleep now. Sleep. Sleep.